Alright, well hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is going to be the first in what I hope to be many videos about woodworking and wood carving in general. So, don't have a name yet for the channel. Thinking something along the lines of the Wood Nerd or the Carver's Garage. Something like that anyhow. So anyhow, what I wanted to do is start off with just a general overview of tools and kind of tool selection and what you're going to need to get started in wood carving. So you don't need all this. Let me just say that right off the bat. You don't need all that and other drawers full of chisels. So some of these I've used once or twice, but there's definitely like a dozen or more that I go back to all the time. So, and those are the ones you probably want to get something in that approximate size and shape in order to start off doing wood carving. It's going to be the most useful for you. So just to talk a little bit about the numbering, all wood carving tools, well not all, but for the most part historically they've been numbered from 1 to 11, and there's actual more numbers, but for right now we'll just stick to 1 to 11. And so a 1 is going to be basically just a straight chisel like this, but you can see it's sharpened on both sides as opposed to a carpentry chisel, which is really only has a bevel on one side. So again, this is a number 1, and it's going to basically leave a flat mark like that when you're carving. So this is also a number 1 chisel. Okay. Again, you can see the bevel on both sides, and you can kind of see my crappy tempering job on this one. But this is also a number 1. Okay, small, but size doesn't really matter with the numbering, at least when it comes to the 1 through 11. So moving up. Now we're into, this is a number 2. This is a Swiss-made chisel. You can see it's numbered on there, number 2. So if you go across manufacturers, the numbering is generally consistent, but again, if you go from one manufacturer to another, their idea of a number 2 could be different from another one. So anyhow, let me show you what a number 2 looks like. Again, just slightly curved in section. Okay. That's a number 2. This is a different number 2. Again, it's a pretty flat chisel. This would be considered a fishtail number 2. And again, this is another number 2. They're all pretty flat across there. Okay. So, and then moving up to number 3. See, it's going to be slightly more curved. This is a number 4. So number 3, slight curvature. See, this is interesting because this is a number 3 as well. About the same size, but you can see that this one, made by the Swiss made, is a lot more curved than this. This is almost flat. But again, that's just a difference in manufacturer. You know, these are Austrian modern made, and this is a actually, I don't know. This is a Herring Brothers from London, so this is an antique chisel right here. So anyhow, it's just a general reference. So you can see as we're going 1, 2, 3, the curvature of the chisel starts to increase. So again, so this is number 4. And this is also number 4. And this is also number 4. Just to give you an idea. You can see the curvature is increasing. These are all number 4s, they're just different width chisels. So again, and now we're into a number 5. Let's start down below. See, it's increasing in curvature. Here's another number 5. Those are actually almost about the same size, but again, it's slightly different when it comes to the actual curvature of the chisel, but that one actually fits in, so maybe it's just an optical illusion. This is a number 5 that I made out of an old chisel that So again, about the same size. This would be considered a fishtail chisel. You can see the tempering marks that are left on there. So moving up in the world, we've got a number 6 here. So again, the curvature of the chisel is increasing. So this is just what I'm trying to demonstrate with this. Is that it doesn't really matter. This is a number 7. Again, slightly more curved. This is probably like an 8 or a 9 right here. See, it's curved. Curved. This is a number 8 here. Moving up. Another number 8 or 9. This one's not really marked, but it's about the same. Okay, this is a number 9, just to give you an idea. You know, this is a number 9, and this is a number 9, right? They're both number 9s. Again, 9 is describing the actual curvature, the section of the chisel, not the width at the tip. So again, that's what a 9 is going to look like, and a smaller 9. There you go. Okay, and moving up, like I said, this goes from 1 to 11. So this is a number 10. Starting the line here, number 10, and then these last ones are a couple of number 11. So the difference with number 11 is that, and this one's really pronounced. You can see it on here. That the section, that section there is almost U-shaped. These sides are almost coming up straight. Show you what that looks like when I press it into the wood. Again, that's coming up straight. So, so like the old terminology for this would have been the number 11s were called veiners, and the like a number 10 or number 9 would be called a fluter. You know why that's the terminology, I don't know. But the main difference is that with a number 10, you can still actually transcribe a circle with this tool. This is just a small number 10, but you can see when I turn it around, it makes a circle. And you can actually do that with all of these except for the 11s, because they are so steep. So if you try that with a number 11, it's gonna, you can see it's gonna start to actually come in off that line. So, but all of these chisels, whether it's a little like 3/8 inch number 4, if you run that around, you're eventually going to get a circle. It just depends on the diameter of it, right? So something like that. Okay. So that's really the numbering, and there's a lot more actual higher numbers when it comes to it. But pretty much, if you think about number 1 being flat, and number 11 being, you know, this U shape, that's gonna get you going anyway. So you know, if you have a 1/2 inch number 1, you know, it's gonna be like this, and you know it's gonna be a flat chisel. So anyhow, that's really when it comes to using them, you don't really think, oh, I need a 1/2 inch number 1. You think, oh, I need that one with the little handle right here. This is like my favorite one. You know, you kind of like, you think of it in terms of the actual chisel that you need to fit the shape that you're trying to carve, instead of like the actual number. The number is more for reference when you're trying to buy them. So if you see them in a catalog, or you see them on eBay or something like that. So I'll do another video later talking about how to get, a lot of my chisels are old, and a lot of them I bought. You can see that all the handles are pretty much different. And that's, a lot of times you'll buy them, and the chisel will be good, but the handle will be messed up in one way or another, split or broken. And so a lot of times I just wind up making new handles for them, and it kind of differentiates them between you know, what chisel you're looking for, instead of having like a ton of chisels like this, and you're looking at all the handles the same, kind of that same octagon shape and that ash. Kind of differentiates it. If you know, this is like a Cocobolo handle that I made, so I kind of know that's that one. Again, there's a whole bunch. This is actually a maker-made handle, quite nice turned handle with some grooves that were cut into it. And so anyhow, just a little way to kind of differentiate your chisels. But if you're buying them right off the bat, there's certain types that you're going to want to have. Before I get into that, let me talk a little bit about some of the more unusual ones that you're going to find. Okay, and this is the V tool. Okay, so this again called a V tool because it's V in cross section, and if I press it into the wood, you're going to see basically it makes that V-shaped mark there. Okay, and I'm going to talk more about what these tools are exactly used for. There's different angle V tools, again, different sizes, but they're all V tools. Some of them are about 60-degree angle. Some of them are steeper. You see this one here is a more acute angle here. And these can be a little tricky to sharpen, so that's going to be another video on how to actually sharpen a V tool. But so anyhow, the V tool, that's important. You're probably going to want to have one of those, something in about this size, which is probably like 3/8 of an inch across the edge. So that's one of the ones you're going to want to have. Then we have some more unusual shapes. These are called front bent chisels. Okay, this is quite a large front bent or spoon chisel, and you can see this is used for getting into areas where a straight chisel would actually have a hard time clearing that edge. If I was going to carve down to a base, this one would be able to carve at a much lower or much sooner. So that's kind of the purpose behind that. And there's a lot of different shapes, really kind of depending. So this is one shape, but this is also another shape. You can see this. So this would carve right about here, and this one you're carving right about here. It's kind of interesting. So again, kind of used in this manner. You know, again, getting in those areas that are really kind of hard to reach. Again, another front bent chisel. Okay, it's quite a nice Addis one. And again, just using it to, if you're getting in an area right here, you can actually start carving. Carve a bit of my bench here, but you can start carving a lot sooner than you would with a straight chisel. And again, the numbering on these is definitely varied. There is a standard like London pattern numbering, but we're not going to worry about that. Just think of those as front bent or spoon chisel, and then they're short front bent, and these are long front bent, right? You can see it has a long curvature to it. It's the same concept, and really, it's kind of redundant. Like it'll start carving right about here, whereas a straight chisel, you know, would start carving right about here and might get hung up because it's not going to clear the edge. So these, I wouldn't recommend buying a bunch of these. I've picked up a few over the years, kind of when you buy a set, maybe there's one or two of these in there. I wouldn't necessarily buy these. Anything that you want to carve in that situation that you need to clear that clearance, you get a short front bent chisel and it'll do the job, and you don't have to worry about the long bend. And then these are really kind of specialized too for it's the same situation, but instead of carving a concave, you're carving a convex shape. So this is a back bent chisel. So you can see it's kind of the concave section is on the top, of course, but it'd be used bevel up in this manner. So there's a few of the different types. There's also, just to confuse you even more, when we start talking about fishtail chisels, we have a fishtail like this, which is quite a sharp fishtail with quite acute corners here. But we also have something like this, which would be called a long spade or allonge chisel, which you can see it tapers right here from the base right up to the edge, so it tapers the whole way. And then most of them are a variation on that. It'll start, you can see it's straight here, and it'll start tapering somewhere like mid-shaft up there. So again, so those are fishtail chisels. Those are useful for lettering. They're also lighter and nicer to use. You can get into corners with them a little easier. But anyhow, so that's kind of an overview of the different types. In terms of section. So And then we have different sizes, right? So the sizes, like I was saying, number 1, okay, and this one's probably about like a 1/4 inch, number 1, and this one's about 1 inch. So again, the sizing just, it can vary all the way up to, let's see, oh yeah. So this is probably about 1.5 inches right here, this spade and chisel. So again, to 2 inches, I mean, it really depends. You know, there's some quite large chisels out there. Again, this would be more for sculptural stuff, larger. But the stuff we're gonna do, or the stuff I want to do anyhow, and show you guys is more architectural carving, which is what I learned, and I think you're gonna enjoy. Right. So that's a brief overview of the chisels. We'll get into sharpening them at another video. But I want to talk a bit more about some other things that you need. So what you do need is a workbench, right? So this is just something I made. It's nothing special. I've moved around a lot, and this top comes off and the base comes off. I got probably about 200 pounds of sand in the bottom of it, so it's quite stable, which is something that you want to have in a workbench. But you know, it's also something that the height is quite high. It's right about the height of my elbow, which helps so I'm not actually bending over the bench when I'm carving. Everything is right here, right about in my working area where I have the most power. So that's something to think about. A bench, you know, different types of vices. But if you have a bench or a flat surface or something that's pretty solid to hold on to, and a couple of clamps, then I like these just adjustable clamps. 6 inches, and they're quite robust, pretty hefty clamps. And when you start pounding on it, they don't move around. You can really clamp it in there. So typically, you know, if you're doing whatever you're working on, you can clamp directly to your bench. A couple of clamps, and then just kind of move them around as you go, and you're good to go. So you got some chisels, you got a bench, or a flat surface. It's like a door across some sawhorses, whatever you have. And then you have, a lot of times you can use the chisels purely with hand power, just, you know, just using them with your hands and the strength of your arms to do it. But a lot of times it's going to be more economical to use a mallet. And then it also is kind of counterintuitive, but it gives you more control with a mallet, because you can vary the, you know, how hard you're hitting. You can vary the weight of the mallet too. You know, this one is probably close to 2 pounds. So again, but I like a circular mallet, kind of a round. This is something I made out of some deck wood, I believe, at some point, and just a maple handle. This wasn't turned or anything. I think I just carved this around, and this has been pretty handy over the years. Pretty standard one to use. And again, this is probably just over 1 pound or so, maybe a little more. But having a mallet, having it round, you can pick it up. You put it down. It has a flat top, so you put it down. You pick up your chisel. You can hold it. You can kind of like choke up on it. You can hold it down further. Get a little more power, but anyhow, you don't have to think about what side of it you're actually hitting. You just pick it up and start using it. You know, flip it around. Doesn't matter. Okay, and you put it down when you're done. So that's why I prefer to use a round mallet like that, as opposed to some sort of hammer, or a wooden hammer, or wooden mallet. Right, so mallets, a lot of different sizes, a lot of different ways you can make them. Pretty much, say about half of these I made. I bought, this was an old one that I kind of refurbished, put a new handle on, kind of put a butterfly to check the cracking on that. So, the other thing you're going to need is some way of actually sharpening your chisels. And you're going to need a flat stone. So this is a DMT stone. And I made a little case for it, but anyhow, it's got a couple brads set into the bottom so you can put it on your bench. And it's going to stay in place and you don't have to worry about it. Use this stone with water. I also have some oil stones. Here's a little nice hard Arkansas oil stone. Use with oil. A little more messy when you're using with oil. And again, this is quite a fine stone, so you wouldn't be using this for your initial shaping of the chisel. But I'll go into that in a different video on sharpening. Some of the other things you're going to need are slipstones, and the way we sharpen is using the royal we. So the way I was taught to sharpen is you sharpen a pretty long outside bevel and a smaller inside bevel, and this has some advantages that I can talk about. But anyway, to get in there, you're going to need a round slipstone like that, and you probably want a bunch of in different sizes or whatever. And these can be shaped. If you have a diamond stone, you can shape them to whatever you like. This one has an angle on it, so it's kind of useful for getting in. This is an oil stone, useful for getting into some of the tighter areas of the V-tool. And again, you can also use sandpaper. Sandpaper and glass works pretty well. And then you can also use the sandpaper wrapped around whatever little piece of wood that you've shaped or whatever to get inside these tools. So that's another thing. And just a couple of little miscellaneous things. Gonna need some sort of brush maybe to like get in the little nooks and crannies of a carving and get out some of those last little pieces that are just hanging on in there. Winkle them out like my old boss used to say. And then these are some tools that I've made. These are just punches or stippling. Again, these are just background tools, and you would use these. Trip over a 2x4. Use these with a hammer. Like so. Kind of creates a textured background for a carving. So, and again, it kind of just you can see that. All right. So that's pretty much it for today. Just a brief overview of the type of chisels that you're going to be using. We'll go into more of like the 7 or 8 tools that you want to have to start off with. So you don't need all this. You need like 7 or 8 tools, a mallet, a couple of clamps, and a flat surface to hold it. And then some good designs. All right, happy carving.